Hi everybody, so before we get into drawing our perspective 3D drawings with our names, we have to practice making blocky bubble letters. And I know that sounds kind of silly because usually you make bubble letters look like bubbles, but in order to make your perspective drawing look right and look 3D, we have to do a blocky version of a bubble letter. And what I mean by blocky version is you have to have your letter have corners. So to start, you're going to pick a word or your name. First name preferably, but if you want to do your last name, that's fine. I'm going to do my last name. So when we usually do bubble letters, we write the letter capital, and then we literally put it in a bubble, and then we go in and we erase the bubble or the inside letter. So with this same idea, but we're going to make it pretty blocky. So with my S, I'm going to make it big. And keep in mind, we're doing the dry erase first in case you make a mistake. So now that I know that it's blocky, I have to add an edge. So there's my edge on that first part of the S. And I'm looping around. Whereas before we did it curved, now we're doing it with that hard edge. Then you're going to go in and you're going to erase. So what's nice now is you can practice that blocky letter freehand. So without doing the middle letter S. I want you to feel comfortable doing it without the pre-designed one. Then what I want you to do is work on the next letter in your name. So notice how I'm making straight edges and corners. You know, my M, it's like that. My I will have straight edges like this. My T is pretty easy, straight edges and corners. And my H is just my I flipped. Like that. So I want you to practice working on your name or whatever word you pick and getting pretty comfortable freehanding it. So I'm going to work on my name and getting it all in one area about the same size. Perfect. So I feel pretty comfortable with those blocky letters. You can also refer to the font guide to help you really kind of get to know how your letters in your word or your name look with the black version. Okay, so after talking about perspective, we're going to create our own perspective drawings. Now, what I want you to do first is you have this large piece of paper. You're going to have it laying horizontally, which means the long edge is facing up. Something that I really want to talk about quickly is pencil pressure. This is extremely important because you will be erasing lines if you make mistakes. And we're also going to erase our perspective lines. So something I want to show you really fast is how hard or how soft you push on your pencil will depend on how easy it is to erase. If I'm barely putting any pressure on my pencil, it makes a really light line, which is easy to erase. It's like it wasn't even there. If you work lightly, those lines will disappear. If you press hard, those lines are hard to erase. And I'm pressing pretty hard, getting the eraser. You can still see that line in there. We don't want that line in there, okay? Work lightly. So I'm gonna make this side the back of my paper. Name and flip. And you're just gonna flip it over. Okay, so you should have a ruler or a yardstick in front of you. If you lay that out on your piece of paper, you will see that your paper is 18 inches long. So I'm gonna move this up pretty close to the top, and I'm gonna line up my ruler and my yardstick. Half of 18 is 9. So right at 9, you're gonna draw a dot. And it's about an inch away from my top, okay? Now, down on the bottom half or middle bottom half is where you're going to do your bubble letters. So of the word you picked, Whatever name you picked, you're gonna do that on the bottom middle half. Now keep in mind, you've got only 18 inches to work with, which is a lot bigger than the practice. So what I like to do, since I know that there are 5 letters in the name I am doing, I'm going to put the middle letter, which is an I, right below that dot. So I know I have 2 letters on this side, 2 letters on this side, and then my I in the middle. Whatever works best for you, that's just the trick that I do. If you want to start on the left, you can. If you want to start on the right, you can. I'm going to start right in the middle. Trick is, work lightly with that pencil. Push down with very, very little pressure in case you make a mistake and have to erase. So I'm going to get started on that. I'll fast forward through this part of the video. Perfect. So you can see how I worked lightly. I also varied the size and height of my shape. So I've got my S down here, the M is up a little, the I is down, the T is up, and the H is down. So adjust where you can. If you don't like the length of something, erase it and push it and move it where it needs to go. When you do this, you want to keep in mind any straight edges have to be going straight up and down. They've got to be vertical. Like this. So this one is parallel with this one and these ones too. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your ruler, and from every corner or every part that you see, you are going to draw a line using your ruler from the line to that dot. So for example, if I start with my M, I got a corner, 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 corner. I'm going to make all of those corners go to the dot. So I'm lining up on the dot, I'm lining up on the ruler. This is where you need to make sure you're working very lightly because we're going to eventually erase part of this line. Make that corner go to that dot. Go to the next corner. Corner to the dot. Sometimes what I do too is I'll put my pencil right on the dot or on the corner and then the other end on my dot and just move along as I go. So looking at my M, some of the corners to edges you are not going to draw. So if I'm looking at this one and I'm going to the dot, the line goes behind the M. So you don't need to draw that one. So just skip it, okay? You don't need it. This one down here though, I do, because only part of it goes behind the M's. Most of it is showing. So I'm gonna do just right here and then pick up where it goes to the M, because you're not gonna see it's behind it. And then work to the next one, like that. And this one, behind the M, don't need it. Then I'm just gonna work to my next letter and continue with that. I'm gonna save the S for last because that one is hard because it's a curved edge. I'm gonna skip the bottom 2 because I can't see them, they're behind the I. My T is tricky because this one behind the T, this one you won't be able to see, this one you won't be able to see, and so I'm just gonna skip them. I'm going to my H. Picking it up so it doesn't cross the T and just drawing the rest. Picking it up because it's behind the T. This one I will need. And then I'm gonna pick it up. And then I'll need this one down here. Perfect, so S is a little bit harder. So if you have a curved edge like an O or anything with a curved top, a Q, you wanna make sure that you're just kind of lining up where you think an edge might be. So right where my ruler hits right here on the S is where I'm gonna just draw my line. And then there's an edge here. I'm just gonna draw up to the M and then across. And then I'm gonna do the same on the edge down here. As I'm gonna go about to the part just where it hits the ruler at the widest part, like that. So you can kind of see how it's a little bit 3D right now. All right, so now is where we gotta kind of pay attention to where we're drawing our lines. So our dot down here is called our vanishing point. So what we're gonna do is we want to draw lines to make the block letter look 3D. And the way you do that is you draw a line that's parallel to the line that's already there. So if I'm looking at my T, so we want our lines to be parallel. So I want this line, my new line, to be parallel with this line, what I'm doing right here. So I'm gonna get it as straight as I can and draw that line. Voila, this is parallel to this. To do this one over here, we wanna make sure it's the same thing but parallel, but connecting from this edge that we just drew all the way down. So like that. So it'll be the same width. Parallel, 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 parallel. And you're gonna continue around your letters and just continue to do that. So on my I, same thing. I'm gonna draw a parallel line. Once you've drawn the line too, you can erase your guidelines because you no longer need them. So this one I no longer need. These I no longer need. Like that. And then down here, we're gonna connect it all the way up and just stop at the top of the T. So parallel, parallel, and I don't need this anymore. Same with the H, I, and then I'll show you how to do the S last. So with curved letters, it's a little bit harder. So you want to just make sure you're kind of following the same perspective that you were doing before. So I know my S will actually have a straight line. So I'm going to add that in. And with the curved 3D part, you're going to have to follow what you did before. So just kind of take a guess. If you're not sure, I will help you with this part. So I'm just gonna follow, and I'm gonna go up, and then I know it's gonna disappear behind that S, so I'm just gonna put that line in. Now all of my letters look 3D and they look good. They look like they're going into space. I'm gonna erase all of my extra guidelines. Perfect, so all my letters are floating. You can kind of see my guidelines. It must have just been where I drew too dark, but don't worry, we're gonna use paint sticks in the background anyways. Before you go any further, I'd like you to trace your letters with Sharpie and one of the larger Sharpies. Now that I'm traced in Sharpie, I'm just gonna double check to make sure none of my pencil lines are showing through. And if they are, I'm just gonna erase them. Okay, for the background, we're gonna be using paint sticks. So, only the background is getting paint sticks. Leave the inside white, we're gonna do something else here. So what I'm gonna do is just pick random colors and I'm gonna fill in the background to make my words look like they're popping off the page. To avoid getting paint stick all over the table, I'm just gonna stick a free draw paper underneath around the corners where I am working to avoid getting it all over the place. What's really nice about the paint sticks is they are easy to control if you just use them on the flat or on the edge. They also blend really nicely on your paper, so I'm gonna start blending my colors together. Perfect, and that is my whole background. I'm gonna put this in the drying rack just to make sure that it's completely dry by the next time we use them.